And now we're going to take a look at Daf Tesamid Beis. The Mishnah says on Daf Tesamid Beis, Ha'osa sukaso tachas ha'ilon ki'ilu asa b'toch habayis. If you build your sukkah underneath a tree, and the foliage of the tree will cover your sukkah, then it's as if you built your sukkah inside a house, and it's possible. Not only that, but sukkah gabi sukkah. Now we're not talking about tachas ha'ilon. An elon is not a sukkah. But now he builds a sukkah inside a sukkah, and the largest sukkah has schach on top of it. Elyonik shera, hatachtona psula. That just like we have a psul of sukkah b'toch beso, we also have a parallel psul of sukkah lemata b'sukkah. So the top sukkah is kshera because it's not underneath another sukkah. The bottom sukkah is psula because it's underneath the schach of the higher sukkah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, with regard to sukkah tachas hasukkah, it would only be disqualified im ein diurim belyona. It means that the Sukkah Yona itself is Re'uyah L'dira. And the Gemara is going to discuss on Daf Yud, Re'uyah L'dira. Once it's Re'uyah L'dira, then the top Sukkah is a Sukkah. And the bottom sukkah is therefore sukkah tachas sukkah and it's psula. However, in ein diurim belyona, if the top sukkah is not royal dira, therefore it's not considered a sukkah, and therefore the tachtona is kshera because it's not a sukkah tachas sukkah. Amar Rava lo shanu ela be'ilon. When the Mishnah says sukkah tachas ha'ilon is psula, that's be'ilon shetzi laso meruba mechamsa. It has many branches and foliage, and it creates sail. And if you look at the bottom underneath this tree, you will find that there's mostly sail, mostly shade. And in that case, we have a psul of the bottom sukkah that's below the elon. So we have basically a separate schach of the elon, which is called Tzilo Meruba Michamsa. That makes it into schach. And this is a problem I've been having over and over again with the technology. For some reason, if you can somehow solve this problem, I do not know how to mute the participants in the shir.
Let me just close the earphones.
And Raz, is there any way you could close your microphone?
So I can hear the shir wherever I go.
Raz?
You have that in the house? So you have to let it, so when you listen to a shir on Zoom,
Raz,
you have
Raz,
to
Raz.
to the computer. I see. All right, hello. Now, why is you so modest?
Okay. So I have no choice but to try as best as I can to give the shir despite.
Yeah, it's a book on mitzvahs, so he provided the. You know about this?
You know what? I'm going to try to call.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda said that if the top sukkah is not royal adira, then the bottom sukkah below it is kshera. Omar Rava, lo shanu el bilan shetzi loso meruba mechamsa. If you have enough schach in the Elon, so it has a shem schach, then the Mishnah says that ha'oseh sukkah tachas Elon is psula, and the reason for that is because it's a sukkah underneath a sukkah. Avol chamso meruba mitzilso, but if the Elon is not providing shade, it's very thin, its foliage is very thin, there's plenty of sunlight coming through, then the sukkah below it is kshera. And it's not considered a schach tachas schach because the top schach is chamso merubso mipsel, so it doesn't have a shem schach. So the Gemara asks me, how do you derive this din? Midaktani, from the fact that it says a phrase that's redundant in the Mishnah. The Mishnah adds, Ki ilu asa'a b'toch habayis. Lama li lemisni. Why did the Mishnah bother with this analogy to tell me that a sukkah tachas ha'ilon is like a sukkah inside a house? And the Gemara answers, the Tana wants to tell us, Ki ilu asa'a b'toch bayis. Why? Why not just say listening psula? Ella hakamashmal and the ilan dumya de bias. That just like a bias provides protection, provides shade, so too ma bias silasa meruba mechamsa. So too the ilan is also silasa merubsa mechamsa, and therefore it's going to be a case where, like a stam bias where there's mostly tzel, so to the Elon is like a bias, and it's silasa meruba samichamsa. So the Gemara asks the kash on Rava v'chi chamaso meruba mitzilsa mayhavi. In a case where there's more chama than tzel mayhavi, what is the meaning and the significance that now, because the Elon is Chamsa Merubsa Mitzel, so therefore it's not going to passel the sukkah below it? We have another principle here called Tziruf. We'll explain the principle of Tziruf, which leads the Gemara to actually object to Rava. And what is this principle of Tziruf? What we have is now an integration of schach posel with schach kosher. And what does it mean? That you have shade on the bottom of your sukkah, but that shade is a result of a joint effort of both the schach on the top sukkah and the schach on the bottom sukkah. So that the tzel on the bottom is a tziruf of the posel schach of the Elon together with the kosher schach of the bottom sukkah. And we should be disqualifying the bottom sukkah under the halach of tziruf schach posel. Rav Papa, you know when Rava says that you can be machshir the bottom sukkah, that's b'shechavton shechavoton, which means that he took the foliage, the branches of the tree, he bent them down, and he mixed them up together with the schach. And if you take a look at Rashi, which is about 5 lines up before the end of the Omid, Rashi says, "Debatel agav kosher v'havile kula kshera." Or if you take a look at Rashi higher up on the daf, kishachavton, Rashi says, "Hishbil enough of lemata." It's about 15 lines down from the top. Me'uravim im tzchach kosher. Or as the Bach adds, that v'harei hein me'uravim im tzchach kosher, einom nirim bien, u'tzchach kosher rabba lov levatla. The Midaraisa called Mili Bata Barov. So Rashi activates the principle of Bata Barov. And now when he mixes the mute, which is the schach posel of the top of the elon, together with the schach kosher in the bottom elon, then the schach, that's the branches of the elon, is batel because it's mixed in with the schach of the bottom sukkah. The Gemara asks, Ibe shechavaton ma'ila meimar. So what did Rava have to be mechadesh to us? Would I ever think that the law of bittul should not apply over here? Bittul is a universal law. Mal the same, I would have said that maybe the Rabbanon should have made Xera Nigzar Atu Chavaton Atu Heichad Below Chavaton. We're not going to rely on the fact that he is going to mix together the schach of the Elon with the schach on his tree, on his sukkah, and therefore he might not do this process of chavata. And then we have a tziruf. Again, we get back to that principle of tziruf schach posel with schach kosher. A mashmalon, Rava says, no, lo gazrinon. There's no room for xera, and we're going to rely on a person to mix the branches of the elon and the foliage of the elon together with his schach in such a way that it's bata b'rov. Gemara still asks the kasha, nami tanina. Even this halach we have in a Mishnah later on in Daf Yud Aleph. The Mishnah says, Hidla aleha es hagefen, if he puts on top of his sukkah a vine from a vineyard, ves hadlas, or he takes the leaves, or I should say the branches of a gourd, the esakisom, that's another kind of a grass that, it's sort of has shroshim in the elon. V'sichech al gabon, and he uses all these as schach, but keep in mind all of these are mechuber lekarka, and schach that's mechuber lekarka is posel. But im hoya asichuch harbe mehen oshek tzotzon kshera. The Mishnah says explicitly that if he mixes these mechuber lekarka schachs, which are posel, together with his schach kosher and harbe mehem, so that he has mostly schach kosher, we're going to apply the principle of rov in the sukkah's kshera oshek tzotzon, or he cuts down that which is mechuber lekarka, it's kshera. So what do I need Rava's statement when he's basically reiterating what we have explicitly in a brisa? The Gemara answers, Hechi Dami. What is the case in our Mishnah where he is marbes chach kosher on schar posel? Ilema be shaloch havoton. If he didn't mix them together, then there's no bittul of rov. Then again, we're going to activate the principle of ha. Komitz taref schach posel im schach kosher. And that's going to passel the sukkah. Elalav kishechavaton, that he bends them down and he weaves them together with the schach kosher, and he has rov schach kosher, and the schach posel is bata barov ushmamina de lo gazrina. And the Mishnah says the sukkah is kshera. We have no inhibitions about it, and we don't have a gzera that would passel the sukkah because maybe tomorrow, he's not going to do this process of chavaton. Our answer is Ma'al if I only had the Mishnah, I would have thought, Hani Mili, when is this Sukkah Kshera? That's B'di'evet. In other words, if he already mixed the foliage together with his schach, and that's called Hidla Alea in Lashon Avar, he already did such a thing, then we're going to let him get by with it. And the Sukkah B'di'evet is Kshera. We're not going to allow him to take Anfei Ha'il on the branches of a tree and pour it on top of his sukkah and then have him mix it in, because we're always afraid that maybe he won't mix it in. Kamash Malon, that's what Rav wants to tell us, that when the Mishnah says ha'osa sukaso, it means that even l'chatchila is allowed to do it. Now we go back to Mishnah sukkah al gabi sukkah hatachtona psula ton rabbanon. How do we derive this halacha that there's a psul of sukkah tachas sukkah? Basukos Teshvu. It says Basukos without a vav. And why did the Torah omit the vav? The lo besukah tachas hasukah. If the Torah wanted to be machshir one sukkah underneath another, it would have said Basukos, with a vav indicating a plural of two sukkahs. V'lo b'sukkah tachas ha'ilon, v'lo b'sukkah shebesoch habayis. So it comes out that if a person is sitting below two sukkahs, two schachos, then he's not yotze, he's not fulfilling his mitzvah. The Gemara asks the following question: Adarabba, basukos tarte mashma. After all, we read it basukos in the plural, even though it only says bisukas in the singular, but we read it in the plural. And therefore, it's telling us that you could have two sukkahs. How could you exclude a sukkah that has on top of it another sukkah under the word sukkas when we read it as sukkos? Omar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, even though we read it as if it was in the plural, but basukos ksiv. It's written in the Torah without a vav, as if it was lashon yachid, and that means only one. So sit under one sukkah, but not under two sukkahs. Omar Rav Yirmiyah, ha'amim sheshtem ksheros, pamim sheshtem psulos, pamim shetachtona kshera ve'elyona psula, pamim shetachtona psula ve'elyona kshera. You can have all four kombinot. Pamim sheshtem ksheros hechidami higon shetachtona chamsa merubza mitzelsa. So there's no schach on the bottom sukkah, and therefore it's considered as if there's only one schach, and that is the Elyona. Elyona tzilsa merubza michamsa v'kaima Elyona b'toch esrim. And the schach of the top sukkah, the upper sukkah, is below 20 amma. Pa'amim sheshtem psulos hechidami. And that's kigon to travayu tzilasa meruba mechamson v'kaima ha'elyona l'malam yesrim amma. So the top sukkah is above 20 amma, that's psula. And the bottom sukkah is what's called the sukkah tachas hasukkah, and therefore it's psula. Pa'amim shetachtonik shera v'elyona psula. Why would the elyona be psula? And the answer is hechidami kigon shetachtona tzilsa merubta michamsa. So therefore, the tachtona has kosher schach. And if it has kosher schach, it's a kosher sukkah. But the elyona is possible. Why? Because it's chamsa merubsa mitzil, so v'kaimi travaya b'toch esrim. And they're both within 20 amma. And therefore, the schach elyona is schach psula, and therefore it's not a kosher sukkah. But the tachtona is kshera, because tachtona is tzilsa, merubsa, mechamsa. And finally, ha'amim shel yona kshera v'tachtona psula, hechidami, how could the top one be kshera? Kigon de travayu tzilsa merubsa mechamsa, v'kaima elyona b'toch esrim. And now, since the top sukkah, the upper sukkah is kshera, it's got tzilsa merubsa mechamsa and schach, and it's below 20 amma. Therefore, the bottom sukkah is a sukkah tachas sukkah. Shita. The Gemara says this is all clear from our Mishnah. We know from our Mishnah that you need tzilsa merubsa mechamsa. So why does Rabbi Yomi have to come and tell me all these combinations? I mean, we can figure them out on our own. And the Gemara answers that Rabbi Yomi wants to teach us only one chiddush. And what is that chiddush? Here we turn to Daf Yud. Tachtona kshera v'elyona psula itzrufle. He has to tell us about a case where the bottom sukkah is kshera, the elyona is psula. That means that the bottom sukkah is tzilsa merubta mechamsa, the elyona is chamsa merubta mitzelsa. They're both within 20 amma of the karka. Ma'odetem, I would have thought, without Rabbi Yirmiyah nigzar, we should institute a gzera and we should disqualify the bottom sukkah. Why? Dilma mitztarif schach pasul bahari schach kosher. Maybe people will think in this particular scenario where chamsa merubsa mitzilsa in the upper sukkah, that it's a kosher sukkah as is. And if it's a pasul sukkah, then maybe the schach is worthless. And what they're going to do is they're going to be machshir the tachtona, even in a situation where the Elyona is above 20 amma. We said that if the Elyona is above 20 amma, then we apply the principle of mitztarev schach posel bahari schach kosher. And that's what Rabbi Yirmiyah Kamashman is teaching us, that we don't accept this gzera. And if the Sukkah Elyona is within 20 amma, then the Sukkah, and it's chamsa merubsa mitzelsa, the Sukkah tachtona is ksher. If, on the other hand, the Sukkah Elyona would be Lamala v'esrim amma, then it would become schach posel, and it would be mitzaref to the Sukkah tachtona and pasel the Sukkah tachtona. Okay, Rebels, this is where we're going to stop. And the daf for tomorrow in Mirza Hashem B'li Neder, I'll put up online if you want to look at it at YU Torah. And I'll take this opportunity to wish you a great Shabbos, and hopefully we'll have a Beis Hamikdash. We won't have to fast on Sunday. And then I won't have to go to the OU Center. Okay then. All the best.
Thank you so much.
Sorry about the interference.